A show created by the fans, for the fans. We are your home for Ohio State football coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Good evening, Buckeye Nation, and welcome to episode number 43 of the Scarlet and Gray Podcast. I am Tyler Johnson, joined by Mr. Jordan Dalton. JD, Happy New Year, my friend. How you doing this evening?
Pretty good.
Awesome, dude. Glad to hear it. Obviously, Nick Leisure is normally with us. He does not appear to be joining us for this episode. There is, of course, a lot to talk about, and it involves Ohio State's new quarterback that they just acquired, Will Howard. Before we get to any of that, guys, just as a reminder, if you would just take a quick second, as always, drop a like on the video, help that YouTube algorithm grow for Network 216, but also subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. We're on the push for 3,000 subscribers here for the new year. And we can't get there without your help, and it's completely free to subscribe to the channel. So make sure that you do that. Also, the Scarlet and Gray Podcast and Network 216 is proud to be a partner of Homage Athletic Apparel. Right now at Homage, if you are a brand new customer, you can get 15% off your first order just for putting in your email address. So go to homage.com, just type in your email address, subscribe for the email updates, and you'll get 15% off your first order. You want to make sure you take advantage of that great offer. That's homage.com. JD, Ohio State went to the transfer portal to get a quarterback. This was something that we really weren't sure if this was going to happen or not because Dylan Gabriel off the board. The Buckeyes weren't showing any interest in Cam Ward, who many thought was the top quarterback in the transfer portal. And it just caught Riley Leonard. We knew they wanted Riley Leonard, but it seemed like that wasn't going to happen either because he was set on Notre Dame. The Buckeyes come out, and we heard that it had been for a month now. They had been speaking to Will Howard, and this past week it got done. What are your thoughts on the Buckeyes going out and getting the former Kansas State quarterback?
I like the move. I think he brings a lot to the table in terms of RPO action that we really didn't get to see at all this past season with McCord. And I know Ryan Day wants to run it just with how he uses Devin Brown and packages. And frankly, Will Howard's just a more experienced Devin Brown at this point. If you look at the passing numbers, they're about identical to McCord, but you have to think that he had less talent at Kansas State than he's going to have at Ohio State this coming season. And the rushing aspect, he's not going to burn you with his feet. He's not going to run a 4.4, but he runs hard. He's a big body, tough to tackle, and he runs that option really well. And I think that was one of the big things that I took away from just briefly looking at his numbers, looking at the offense that Kansas State ran. I could see that translating really well into Ryan Day's offensive system. So big fan of the move. And, with McCord leaving, we had to make a move because like we had previously said on the show, I think you specifically said it, Ryan Day might be coaching for his job this next season. And banking off of Devin Brown, Lincoln Keenholz, and Aaron Noland, who had a combined one career start between the three of them. I don't think that was going to happen. So I think Will Howard's a good move for Ohio State.
Yeah, I do too, man. And the whole Will Howard thing, I've seen fans talk about the stats aren't like they don't wow you. I mean, they don't. Of course they don't.
It's the stat. You just look at the stats and you compare the stats, but I mean, all it takes is a little bit to see the context of how he acquired those stats. So, he's a mobile quarterback. He's going to make some plays with his feet, and I think that's going to be a game changer for this offense.
Yeah, so do I. And Buckeye Mob makes a really good point here. Watching good college football teams past few years, you need a mobile quarterback to succeed. I completely agree. Kyle McCord was a statue back there. I mean, the guy, every now and then, he was able to do something, but he's not going to run. Will Howard has shown that he will run. And, give the guy the weapons that Kyle McCord had. And listen, I didn't watch Will Howard a lot at Kansas State. I've watched a couple of Kansas State football games, especially recently. Dude, outside of Deuce Vaughn, 5'6" running back Deuce Vaughn, he was the best weapon that Will Howard had to work with at Kansas State. I mean, come on. He didn't have Marvin Harrison Jr., he didn't have Emeka Buka, Caden Stover, Travion Henderson. He didn't have these guys. Give Will Howard these weapons, and I think he's going to play pretty well. I really do. I mean, here's the question, JD, because some fans have wondered this. Believe it or not, I don't really think it's a question, but there are fans that are still on this. Is Will Howard guaranteed the starting job in your mind, or do you think Ryan Day is going to say what he always does? It's going to be a competition between Devin Brown, Will Howard, Lincoln Keenholz, maybe Aaron Nolan, because a lot of fans are saying that you brought in Will Howard because you need another body in the quarterback room. I think the opposite. They brought in Will Howard to be the guy for 1 year.
I think that's more likely the case. I get there's still these people that think Devin Brown's the answer at quarterback. We didn't really get to see him, unfortunately, in the Sugar Bowl, but or it was a Cotton Bowl. I can't remember. I didn't even watch it.
It was the Cotton Bowl, dude. It was brutal to watch. So don't. It's all right.
Yeah, I was keeping up with it, but I was at a Blue Jackets game, so I luckily got to miss that disaster of a football game. But yeah, we didn't get to see him a whole lot, and then they kind of threw Lincoln Keenholz into the fire, and the offensive line didn't help any situation. For any quarterback, I don't think anybody was gonna play well in that game, whether it was McCord or Will Howard. And we're already seeing that with the transfer portal, and we are clearly trying to address the offensive line in the transfer portal. So, yeah, I think he is definitely the 1 year stopgap in between Aaron Nolan and Kyle McCord. So I don't think there's a competition really. I think one of the things I read about Will Howard and his decision to come to Ohio State was that the whole reason he wanted to come to Ohio State was to be a first-round pick.
Yep.
And honestly, like, he would have been drafted this year, probably late
day 2.
Yeah. But he has potential to be a first-round pick. We were talking about just his body type and like kind of play style and who he reminds you of. And I was like, just with his arm strength, his mobility, he doesn't have the athleticism, but he reminds me a lot of Josh Allen in terms of like that prototype quarterback that you want in the NFL that has some ability to make plays outside the pocket with good arm strength. So like a poor man's Josh Allen is kind of what we're getting. But I'm excited to see him in the offense, honestly. I think this offense is more tailored for a quarterback like him than it is for Kyle McCord. Yeah.
No, I do too, man. The Josh Allen comparison, when people hear you say that, let's make sure we clarify, because, dude, there's I've seen people say that, and then people are jumping all over someone that actually says that. You're talking Josh Allen at Wyoming. Josh Allen at Wyoming is the prototypical big quarterback. He has the arm. There's no doubt. He's willing to run. He's the big body that can run someone over, but he also has some speed to his game, and he struggles with accuracy from time to time. That is Will Howard.
Yeah, and it's not that like I think he's going to be, like you said, Buffalo Bills 5 years ago, Josh Allen, but just like the similarities that like were big knocks on Josh Allen coming out of college, the negative stuff and then the positive stuff as well. It's very similar to Will Howard's game. I don't think he's a as athletic as Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen's kind of like in that freak athlete territory with some of the things he can do. I don't think Will Howard's that, but just what he can bring to the table. He honestly, it's kind of funny because watching him play, he reminds you kind of Colin Klein, and who was his offensive coordinator at Kansas State. Very similar play styles, and they obviously play for the same team. So I think it's kind of like a better comparison, but having a player like that, it's gonna open up so many things for the offense.
Absolutely, man. And I think with Will Howard too, the thing that I really like, and we posted this on our Twitter page. If you're not following us, you can give us a follow at the SG_podcast. It's also tickering on the bottom of your screen there. But posted the stat. If you look at Will Howard's stats against ranked opponents from 2020 to 2023, the completion percentage isn't great, okay? I mean, it's 57%, but Will Howard had nearly 1,400 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He had 169 rush yards, 5 touchdowns, Big 12 champion. And on top of that also, he was a guy that led them to a Big 12 title. And it was 3-4 during that time. And again, the record's not great. That's nearly 500 with subpar weapons around you. I mean, if you look at Kyle McCord, his numbers are actually worse win percentage, like not win percentage wise, but touchdown to interception ratio wise compared to Will Howard. So against ranked opponents. Now I know we only have 1 year sample size of McCord, but I think Will Howard, you put the right talent around him, he's going to succeed. So I'm excited to see what he does. What do you think this means for the rest of Ohio State's quarterbacks? I know Devin Brown had the opportunity to leave, apparently. The coaching staff did tell him about Will Howard before they went and got him. They told him what they were going to do, and Devin Brown's sticking it out. I think at least for now, right now, you're going to go into spring and you're going to have 4 quarterbacks. You're going to have Will Howard. You're going to have Devin Brown, Lincoln Kienholz, and Aaron Nolan. Now, what happens after that is what gets interesting. Does Lincoln Kienholz come out and win that backup job? Because I very well think he could. And if he does Devin Brown stay? I don't know. How do you think the quarterback room ends up shaking out? Again, we're a ways away from that. We're not at spring ball yet. I mean, that'll be here before we know it. But how do you think it ends up shaking out? Do you think Devin Brown will be a Buckeye come next fall?
So how does the transfer? How does that work? Like once spring ball starts, they have another opportunity to transfer.
Yeah. So the way,
it's kind of like whenever you have a admissions window for college.
Yeah. So it's like there's a point. I need to see if I can find exactly. Oh man, someone DM'd us. Actually, DM'd our page and asked us about it, but I can't find the conversation at this point. But one thing I do. Oh, May 1st to May 15th, it opens again.
Okay.
So right after like all the spring ball decisions and whatnot.
I could see if Kienholz wins that backup job, I could see Devin Brown transferring out. I also could see Devin Brown winning it, and then Aaron Nolan coming in early, beating out Kienholz, and then Kienholz is sitting 4, and he decides to transfer to like North Dakota State or South Dakota State or something, one of those smaller schools that was recruiting him. Just because he was a pretty highly touted guy out of South Dakota. So, like, I know they are probably hitting his phone up a lot, trying to get him to come back home. So, like, if that does happen, I could see one of those guys transferring out. I think Aaron Nolan's definitely going to be here to stay, at least until he gets an opportunity to start.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Devin Brown situation is definitely interesting. He's stuck it out for a couple of years now, and he seemed there was a couple of videos leading up to that bowl game where he was kind of like taking over as the leader, and like he knew he was going to be the starter, and it seemed like he kind of had a grasp on the leadership role. So who knows, man? He might surprise us and win the starting job. Like it's kind of up in the air right now.
Yeah, no, it is. It is for sure. And Don asks us a great question here. Will Howard instantly refers to them as that team up north. Which, yep, I love that too. When beating Michigan is your number one priority, and you basically say that, as opposed to Kyle McCord saying it's just another game, it's just another team, you already win us over. Any word on Travion Henderson? Don, there have been conflicting things that I have read on Travion or heard. For him, it's tough because the running back class is weak, but where is Trey expected to go? His draft range is day 2, and he's lucky if he goes early day 2 right now because, again, running back is just not a major need among NFL teams given free agency, given the draft. I mean, you can get talented guys in the draft on day 3, so does he want to potentially slide to day 3? Does he want to come back to Ohio State? We don't know. NIL is going to play a factor too in that. Also, there have been rumors that Quinshon Junkins is interested in the Buckeyes and that the Buckeyes have interest. Junkins reportedly, according to Berm, who is on the podcast, if you guys don't have a chance to listen to that, I recommend you do, said that he reached out to Igbinosa about Ohio State, which I thought was very interesting. And, of course, now Will Howard and a bunch of other Buckeyes. He now follows them on Instagram, so just take that for what it's worth. But
played with him at Ole Miss. So,
yep, okay. Correct. I should have mentioned that. It's a good point. But with Trey, I really think that's 50-50, to be honest with you. We don't know what's going to happen with Trey. He's got until January 15th to declare either way. So I don't know if we're going to have anything next week. I would think we would, but some of these guys take it right up until the end. So we'll see what happens there. But JD, there was something. I had a conversation with someone that is very connected with the Kansas State program. I had the opportunity to do that. Before I get into the details of that conversation, is there anything else you want to add on Will? Because, again, it's going to take a few minutes. Is there anything else you want to add on Will Howard and him joining Ohio State?
No, he just brings more experience to the room, and that was something that we were seriously lacking for the season last year. Having a first-year starter and then nobody behind him had any experience. So I think just having him in the room brings a lot. You know, he's won a conference championship. He's played in a lot of big games. He's played against Alabama last season. He almost beat Texas this year. Went to overtime. Like he's had experience in a lot of really big games. So I don't think it hurts that he's in our room at all.
Exactly. I'm right there with you, man. Real quick, because we got well over 100 people watching us on a Sunday evening. So first off, thank you guys. Just drop a like on this video today. And again, subscribe if you're brand new to Network 216. All of our episodes are on the Network 216 YouTube channel. We put them on audio as well on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So again, show that support. Really appreciate all our Buckeye fans. So the conversation I had, basically, there were a lot of Ohio State fans that when Will Howard declared that he was coming to the Buckeyes, they looked at his history and saw that he was benched. Okay. Will Howard, they look at his stats. Let's get that out of the way. For those that look at stats, you see that Will Howard played in 2020 and then basically did not in 2021. Will Howard was not benched. So the conversation I had, because I got to ask a lot of good questions. I got really a lot of good info here. So when Bill Schneider retired for the second time from Kansas State, okay, in 2018, Chris Kleiman comes in. The quarterback for Kansas State was Skylar Thompson. Skylar Thompson was not the guaranteed starter at Kansas State. Now, he was starting during this time, but Skylar Thompson battled a lot of injuries. He was very inconsistent as a player. He was not a good passer. He was more of a Colin Klein, like you mentioned, JD type. He was a running quarterback. And when Chris Kleiman came in, he had previously had conversations with Skylar Thompson. Now, mind you, in 2020, Will Howard comes onto the scene as a freshman, and a lot of Kansas State fans were excited about him. They didn't really think he was going to make that an impact early. Will Howard's freshman stats are nothing to get excited about. But one thing he brought was mobility. He brought a flair and a fire that fans really seemed to like. And then going into 2021, they thought he was going to be the starting quarterback. Well, Chris Kleiman comes in and had already had conversations with Skylar Thompson. And as long as Skylar Thompson was healthy, Skylar Thompson was going to be the Kansas State quarterback. So Will Howard was not benched as a sophomore. It was predetermined before they even got the spring ball, before anything happened, that Skylar Thompson was going to be the Kansas State starting quarterback. There was nothing that Will Howard could do to change that. It was going to be Skylar Thompson's show no matter what in 2021. No matter what happened, it was going to be a show. Skylar Thompson that year didn't light up 2,100 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 picks. I mean, didn't set the world on fire by any means, but that tells you right there it was going to be his team no matter what was happening. And Skylar Thompson that year ended up sacked a lot of times, and he ended up with 4 total rush yards. His rushing completely tanked in 2021. So now that brings us to 2022, where Will Howard does become the starting quarterback. Now, Will Howard's 2022 season looks very good. He had 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns, 4 picks. He was only sacked 8 times, 149.6 quarterback rating. Will Howard's number one weapon that year, and a lot of people will know this because the guy is an outlier for the running back position. His number one weapon from everyone I talked to at Kansas State was Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn was a guy Kansas State used as a wide receiver. They used him out of the backfield. It was Will Howard and it was Deuce Vaughn, and that was it at Kansas State. Those were the 2 guys. That was it. And that was the year that Will Howard led Kansas State to the Big 12 title against TCU. And mind you, everyone, TCU had way more talent. Look at all the NFL players that TCU had on that team compared to what Kansas State had. And Kansas State went out and won that game, and that was because of Will Howard. It was a complete seed, 25 yards. You guys might have seen the highlights. We shared the video between 3 defenders, seed for the game-winning touchdown. They told me, because I asked, I said a lot of Ohio State fans are really concerned about his accuracy, about can he be that guy? And they said if Will Howard has the talent that the Buckeyes can put around him, he will be one of the better quarterbacks in college football. He's got the arm. He's got that gunslinger's mentality. He brings a swagger to the position. And he said that is something Kansas State fans loved about him. They said the biggest thing with Kansas State, if you watch, is their receivers are short and they struggled with separation consistently on a consistent basis. And that's the biggest thing with Will Howard. And I said, do you have any concern about him being the guy at Ohio State? No. You have a guy that is very talented. And if he had more talent around him at Kansas State, he could have been something really special. And he said, it's unfortunate that we were never able to put the talent around him, but he's a very good player. And I asked the question I wanted to ask, because this is another one that we got asked, JD. Why did he get benched this year? Because Will Howard was benched this year, actually. After the Texas Tech game, Oklahoma State, my apologies. It was for the Texas Tech game that he got benched. So he got benched for Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson came out, didn't really look that good, but he did end up with 5 total touchdowns in that game. So you're thinking, why would they go back to Will Howard? Will Howard against Oklahoma State, 152 yards, 3 interceptions, okay? It wasn't a great performance. He ran for 104 yards, though, and a touchdown. But Chris Kleiman told Will Howard, you need the mental reps. We're going to sit you down, and you're going to come back next week. And when he came back after being benched, Will Howard, after that, ended the season, and he had 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and he had ended up having a great year for Kansas State to finish out the year. And Kansas State won 3 out of their last 4 games, with Missouri being the only loss, of course, and he performed phenomenal. So for Buckeye fans, I want to say for Buckeye fans that are concerned about Will Howard, from a Kansas State perspective, there was not the talent. The talent was not there. It was all Will Howard had to do everything for Kansas State, and losing Deuce Vaughn really hurt that entire offense as a whole, because he was the majority of their offense. And Will Howard this year still had 2,600 yards, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and a 63.1 completion percentage, which is a career high. They said if you let him sling the ball, he's gonna make plenty of plays. So I wanted to give fans all that information because it's very good info to know. Will Howard has not been benched multiple times, contrary to what has been put out there. It's just not true. So I wanted to give everybody that info, and I hope that was really informational.
Yeah, it looks like he only played 7 games his junior year as well. So his stats are they look.
He battled injury. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks. Yeah, he had better yards per attempt. He still put up 15 touchdowns in 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
So like he played pretty well, and it looked like he was pretty much on pace for what he finished in 2023. So he seems like he's got like a pretty established style, and he, with weapons, you never really know how he'll end up looking. Because I mean, all right, just I was gonna bring this up just because we were up watching that Houston game last night with CJ Stroud, just playing absolutely phenomenal. And one of the knocks for him was coming out was that he had all these weapons. He wasn't going to be that great in the NFL, and then he's doing it without the weapons now. So it might be kind of like a reverse scenario where like we have a quarterback coming in who's played really well without the weapons, and now we give him all the weapons and see what he can do. So I'm excited. And spring ball is right around the corner. It's only a couple months away. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot that's going to be decided before then, of course. And I'm telling you guys, go follow the page if you haven't already at the SG_podcast on Twitter. Really recommend it. A lot of recruiting announcements, a lot of transfer portal news, including another target that apparently is interested in coming to Ohio State. Not going to share that name. It's on the Twitter page. But there's going to be plenty that we're going to get to here over the coming weeks. So we appreciate you guys tuning in to this for episode 43 of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. As a reminder, just take a quick second, drop a like on that video, guys. Again, really help that YouTube algorithm grow for Network 216. And then next show, we're going to discuss all the latest transfer portal additions for Ohio State, talk about other moves that we still believe the Buckeyes will make, including some of the declarations. Already been some big names coming back to the Buckeyes. We're going to break it all down for you. But JD, anything else you want to add, my man, before we wrap things up for this Sunday edition?
No, the only thing is kind of going off of what we're going to talk about next episode with players that are staying. Looks like that list is growing day by day. So a lot of players we thought we were going to lose look like they might be coming back to run it back and try to beat Michigan and try to get that national championship next year. So we should know next week what it looks like, what we're dealing with. And I think that has also been kind of the hang up with the transfer portal is like we don't want to bring somebody in and replace a player if they're going to stay. And so it's definitely going to be exciting. I'm getting a little bit excited just thinking about it. So.
Absolutely, man. Well, as a reminder, guys, like I said, drop a like, subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. We'll be back hopefully at the normal time next week on Monday. But either way, make sure you're tuned into the Twitter account. We'll have all our announcements there if anything changes, any Ohio State updates. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, go Buckeyes.